Yes, I could have paid it. It's $140. But it's the principle behind the situation.
Can you imagine you go to work and you don't even get your paycheck because they're able to garnish a certain percentage of your paycheck?
So I have student loans and I purposely try to not pay it off all at one time, and this is the reason why.
So there is some terrible financial advice out there, and as a self-made millionaire, somebody that started from nothing, read all the books, I've made all the mistakes and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars for the best advice there is, so you don't have to make these mistakes. I'm just going to tell you what I've learned and to keep it simple. Let's talk about some of this stuff, because this stuff is wild.
So I have student loans and I purposely try to not pay it off all at one time, and this is the reason why. If you have student loans that have a low interest, for me that's 3.84%, then it's better to pay the minimum while investing at the same time.
Okay, so this is like debt arbitrage, and there are a lot of problems with this analysis. She has a good idea, Fairy. Let me tell you how this doesn't work, okay? One, you got to factor in the risk. The risk is it could go down. The S&P 500 could go down. The Dow could go down, and it could go down for years. You got to factor in inflation. You got to factor in how much money are we talking about here. By the time you pay taxes on it, you factor in inflation, you have the risk delta. And for some people that have a very risky job, like you're sue prone or things like that, you could have your assets frozen, okay? Like you have a paid off home, and that home could be protected or shielded from creditors through some states, through their homestead laws. There's a lot of things to think here.
The reason for that is because you want to take advantage of the time that you have investing while you're young. So for example, the S&P 500 returns 10% annually. If my student loans are at a 3.84% in interest, then I would be earning more investing my money. On top of that, my high yield savings account is earning more interest than my student loans. For me, I bank with PNC and I'm earning about 5% on my high yield savings.
And trying to play the split of 1 or 2%, let's say the difference in between your debt and your savings account is 2%. You pay taxes on that, you're at almost 1%. And if it's not on a lot of money, the risk analysis in that formula that she just told you is not worth it. It is better to pay down your debt, have no debt, get rid of the risk in your life, and move on to the next thing. There's other ways to get wealthy. Now, if this was real estate and we're talking about a very high margin and you want to use leverage and cash flow covers that, and you don't think your vacancy rate's going to outrun that, then we can talk about that. But to say, hey, the S&P 500, a forward earnings, forward projection is going to be like the ones in the rear, can't always look at it like that. And that's why I believe like what Dave Ramsey says for a young person is correct. Because for most people, this is not going to work out. I've seen a lot of people lose money in options, day trading, and you've got to be very aligned with this because debt arbitrage is like a double-edged sword. You might be unemployed for years. You could go through another 2008 and you can't find the next job, and you're going to wish that you weren't eating it at 10% with these student loans. Student loans are terrible. They were a terrible thing that happened to our society. And if you're not like making a high income because of the student loans, then you know what was it good for? Absolutely nothing. So don't play this risk on, risk off. Do it right. Be debt free by 30. One thing I've learned about finance is how the young think about it and how the old think about it. And as an older person getting into that category, I've realized you want to keep it very simple. You want to decrease your risk and to do things like a lot of moving parts to make you sound like you're fancy is not the way you get rich. The way you get rich is you increase your income as much as you possibly can. You get rid of risk, and then you invest what you made. It is a very 1, 2, 3 sources of an income. Never leave the first source of income for a trickle on the second one. Until that second one is a waterfall, you're not leaving your first. And if you just think about this very simply, I'm going to make as much money as I can, ever increasing my skill set and my ability to earn. And then as I'm going forward, I'm putting things back behind me to grow like little seeds. And I get rid of my debt as I go. And then when I know that I need to use leverage and I can afford it, and never more than 50%, then I go out and I do it. I know the cash flow or whatever it is may cover it, and I have a low risk of being unemployed. But the idea is to get rich once, not go through a bankruptcy and having to start all over again. And that happened because a lot of people forgot the pandemic happened. A lot of people forgot 2008 happened. A lot of people forgot things happen. And you need to figure this out before it happens to you. Get rid of the risk.
If you don't know how to invest and you want to get started, the best way I would go about it is by opening up a Roth IRA and investing in index funds such as the S&P 500. Some examples of this are VOO, FXIAX, and SPY. If you have low interest debt, I advise that you start investing at the same time. If you can spend $50 going out, then you can surely spend $50 on an index fund.
Don't get me wrong, I love my high yield savings accounts. I got a few of them, but just remember they're adjustable. They go up and down. And when you watch this video, it was at 5%. Now most of them are like 3.8, etc. You can do some good ones. You can do some good stuff in Fidelity and Vanguard, just in their brokerage account. But just remember that it's not always going to be that high. We are a country of cheap debt, and they are going to drive interest rates back down to lower levels. We know we're going to get 2 or 3 more adjustments in this year, maybe into next year. So we're going to see an adjustable rate. We're going to see a high yield savings rate of probably in the low 3s. Now, are you breaking even? No. You're playing a game of just chasing your tail. Go focus on something else, like making more money, getting a higher education, or by learning a new skill set, or starting a YouTube channel to get to that extra source of income to make more money. And then you won't have to worry about playing this debt game. Trust me, I own debt of other people. People pay me a mortgage on some of my houses every month, and they are a slave to the lender. They have to go to work every day to pay me. The debtor is slave to the lender. Just the way it is. And the only way that is good debt is if it pays you, and that the risk of it not paying you is near zero. Just gonna tell you, go find another wagon to jump in, because playing with debt is not it. As far as the brokerage funds, those are great. VOO, can't go wrong with it. VOO and forget, right? But you gotta pay for the things in life you need. A car, a house. Get them debt free. Pay off your house. Then sock away everything you get every month above your expenses into the VOO or into real estate or whatever investment you're gonna pick. But don't play with the debt. Just remember, when you have an income that's unburdened, that is when you get really wealthy. Like now I'm at the point where all my money that I make above my living expenses goes towards retirement, and it stacks away fast. Just remember that.
Some student loan borrowers are refusing to pay out of protest. The article says millions of borrowers with existing student loans still have not made a payment since the bills resumed in October after a 3-year hiatus. And some admit that they're refusing to pay for spite.
There is no spite. The federal government is going to own these debts, and they're going to collect it from you forever. And if they're federally backed, that is, the government is the number one holder of this stuff, and they have a way to get income out of you forever with these student loans, and they are not going to give it up. If any president tells you that you're not going to have to pay it, you're wrong. He's wrong. The Supreme Court already said they're wrong. You're going to pay for it. So don't think out of spite you're not going to pay for it. They're unbankruptable, most of them. And it is going to get you. And they're going to garnish your wages, your tax returns. You're not going to win this.
Strictly out of protest.
You. How long does this protest last before they start cracking on them?
Well, the first thing that happens is when you don't pay your bill, it's okay, you're late. There's fees, 6% in some cases. Then you go into default. And if you stay in default for long enough, then you go from owing what your missed payments were to owing the entire balance right up front. It escalates very quickly. And what happens there is when that takes place, it's all right, you're not going to be able to ever qualify. Not that I think that you need to, but you take yourself out of the running to ever qualify for any payments, forbearance, deferment ever again.
Your credit is going to go through the floor. You're not going to be able to get a car loan, a house loan, a mortgage, apartments is going to be tough. You're not going to win this battle until you have enough money to where you don't have to worry about credit ever again. I finally reached that point where I froze all my credit. I don't use it, don't need it, don't want it. Until you get to that point, you've got to play their game, and you've got to pay their little monthly payments. Don't play that game.
Right. Because you've poo-pooed on it and said, you've basically given the government the finger. And so at that point, you've truly screwed yourselves in many ways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you imagine you go to work and you don't even get your paycheck because they're able to garnish a certain percentage of your paycheck?
That's what people don't realize.
Yeah, they can hold your passport.
You know what? And while you're protesting, they can do those things to you.
And the thing is, you think that these people are losing sleep over this in the government? No. They don't care about that. They don't care about you.
If you're a young person out there, pay attention to this, because I'm trying to save you some heartache. I've gone through all this.
To have a debt that they just refuse to pay, like you are not paying unless there are some serious legal consequences. Let me tell you, I have one. It's only because of this insurance company, but it was a small bill. It was like $140. They added it to my credit. I could have been paid it. Yes, I could have paid it. It's $140. But it's the principle behind the situation why I chose to let my credit score drop. Because I did not agree with it. And I refused to pay it. I said, I'm not paying this unless there are some kind of enforceable legal consequences that will be taken.
You're not going to win this battle either. Like $150, what's your time worth? Okay, and that's what these companies do. They know what's your time worth. I'm going to put this little thing on there. I'm going to try to hit your credit. You're going to have to sue me to get rid of it. And for a lot of people, they'll just pay it. Especially somebody that's got money, they know they'll just pay it and get rid of it. And it's the time factor here, time value of money. And so you see this a lot in real estate with liens on houses. Some roofing company, solar company, a lawn mowing company will tack on a lien, and you've got to bring forth a suit to stop it, or they'll keep you from transferring the property. And they know that. And most of the time, if you do sue them, it gets wiped away, but you've got to factor in the attorney, the whole 9 yards, right? And it's the same way on their end. You know, they've got to factor in their attorney, and they got to know who they're dealing with. Rich guy, probably not going to do this to them. Regular person, they're going to put it on there, and they're going to add interest to it, and you're going to be trying to struggle with that for a very long time. So pick and choose your battles wisely, as somebody once told me, and out of spite, you're probably just going to lose it unless you don't need credit, and you're an all-cash guy. That's when you win.
If your goal is to buy in 2024 and you have debt, I want you to listen to me, okay? For context, I'm a mortgage lender, so I know a thing or two about what I'm about to tell you. I have people all the time that say, all right, Jordan, I finally decided to reach out to you because I paid all of my debt off and I'm ready to move forward. And most of the time, I cringe. And you may be thinking, well, Jordan, it must be a good thing that I pay all my debt off, so why would you be cringing? Because most of the time when people come to me and they say, oh, I've paid all of my debt off, it's debt that closes. And being that we live in America and the credit system makes so much sense, when you pay off an installment debt, aka student loan, mortgage, auto, personal loan, essentially anything where it has an end date and the payment is set, and you pay that off, it closes out. Unlike when you pay a credit card off, and it continues to stay open as long as you don't close it out or you just stop using it and they automatically close it out. And so what happens is you pay all that debt off, and hypothetically it's a lot of installment debt, and now all of those lines of credit have gone away, and therefore all of the good payment history has gone away and your credit score dropped.
This is true. It was shocking when I paid off my house how much my credit score dropped. I had zero debt. And I think it went from 800 and something to 720. And I was like, wait a minute, I did what I was supposed to do. I paid you back the debt. Nah, bro. They are going to crush your credit score. It'll recover. And I think it took a year and I was back up to the same amount. But they crushed it because it's all about debt out. And making payment history is a large part of your credit score. And it is wild. And same way, if you have a credit card closeout. I had a credit card for a very long time. I didn't use it. They closed it out on me. I wasn't paying attention because I always carry a zero balance, and sometimes I don't use them. And they closed it out. And 6 years of credit history, gone, right? And I never thought that until I experienced it. So if you pay off your house, pay off your cars, pay it all, you're going to see your credit score drop. Hopefully, by that time, you're done using debt. I'll use it. I will say I use it to get my cash rewards, pay it off at the end of the month. I never use a debit card because I do not want to expose my bank accounts to the internet. Whole nother video. Check out that video where I got hacked. It's a learning experience. So do I use debt? Yeah, pay it off at the end of the month. But I don't carry debt. I don't have a house payment. I don't have car payments. I don't have all that stuff. So there is a method to this madness. Understand this when you go to buy a house. As a real estate agent, I deal with this all the time. And it's like, it's crazy. It's another thing is like insurance claims. Same thing as debt, right? Those things hang on to you like a felony.
So piece of advice to you, if you are at all thinking about purchasing a home and you have any sort of installment debt, if you do not need to pay it off beforehand, aka you just naturally pay it off and like make your payments, you don't force extra payments to try to get rid of this debt because you're afraid you won't qualify. Instead, I want you to talk to me and let's figure out if, one, you need to pay that debt off, and two, if you do need to pay it off, we can pay it off at closing. And if we pay it off at closing, instead of you paying it off before you come to me, it doesn't hurt your credit. And it also doesn't hurt your debt to income ratio because we are paying it off before you close. Therefore, we can exclude it from your debt. So please, please, please keep this in mind, especially if you...
So that's another thing what I was saying about the debt aggregate, like the aggregate between like the arbitrage, like if you have a ton of student loans out and you go to buy a house, it's going to affect you buying a house. I got a buddy, he's a doctor, tons of student loans. Barely squeaked by buying a house, okay? And if you went to get that MBA and you think you're going to be crafty and you're not going to pay that down and you want to go get that nice house, you're going to have a problem. You need to work with a lender, you need to work with a real estate agent, financial advisor. And if your financial advisor say carry all this debt because you got a good mortgage and you are sue prone, like, you better think again about that. Go talk to a lawyer. Go have some security in the way you are putting money away and have a plan.
You don't pay your debts. If the debt's high enough, they can take it to court and try and get judgment against you. It'll cost them money, so some don't do it if it's a small debt. They're likely to do it if it's a bigger debt. If you still don't pay it, they can get enforcement orders or seek enforcement orders, which means they can technically come and take your Now, because I've said this a couple of times before, some people have pulled me up and said, well, you know, can't all do that. And I said, I'm talking generally for sake. Like, they can't apparently take money out of your Centrelink if you're a Centrelink recipient, but they can take money out of your bank account. They can take money out of your wages. They can get enforcement orders to seize and sell property, so things you own. They can even sell your house up. But there's a lot of hoops I've got to jump through. So the ramifications.
So I believe he is a overseas, if you're not in the United States, or if you're in the United States, he's an overseas attorney, but a lot of this kind of falls into the U.S. category. There's a lot of ways lawyers can take stuff from you. When they go and get that judgment against you for a debt you haven't paid, they're coming after it, and they will grind you into the ground. And that's why I say it is just not good to carry the debt. If you can pay it off, pay it off. You're paying down a known rate of return that has a risk that 100% of people that go bankrupt or get foreclosed on carried a mortgage, right? Or carried debt. So don't be that. That's risk analysis 101. And most of the guys that I know, once they got to a certain level of financial security, they paid down all their debts. I know a lot of guys with paid for real estate, with paid for homes. And when they got their head above that cloud, above that, I don't have to worry about debt anymore, it was like they hit a new gear in their financial structure. Like, I'm telling you, like, you can use leverage to get started, but keep in your head that it can cut you just as much as it can cut something else. And it is risk analysis. And as you get older, you want to take risk off the table. You could get hurt, you could get sick, you could get sued, your accounts could get frozen. You could have a bank account that gets hacked and it stays in limbo for a long time. There are plenty of ways that this debt arbitrage can come back to get you. Like, just be careful and save your money and buy a house and don't drink too much. One of the easiest ways I ever heard of being wealthy is you get up $2 million, you buy you an indestructible house with a 25-year roof, you put the money away at a decent return to pay your taxes, and that's your fortress of freaking solitude. Live life from a fortress of solitude and don't drink too much. Don't do drugs. Life will be easy. See you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're looking for a real estate agent, my email is down below, and I'd be happy to help you. See you guys later.